Alzheimer's disease is still an incurable condition. Most people associate it with old age, which is why it is often called senile dementia. But what happens when the person diagnosed is not elderly at all? What happens when a woman in her 30s begins forgetting everything in a matter of months until she can no longer take care of herself? This is the story of Cassiopeia. In South Korea, in 2021, Soo-jin is a successful lawyer and a classic overachiever. Through years of effort, she has earned respect from everyone around her. But her career has also taken over her life. Her marriage has fallen apart, and after the divorce, she raises her daughter Gina on her own. As Gina grows older, Soo-jin decides to send her to the United States to live with her father, hoping the move will give Gina a better education and a brighter future. But just a few days before Gina leaves, the babysitter suddenly quits. Soo-jin is buried in work and has no time to look after her daughter, so she calls her father, In-woo, for help. In-woo is already retired, and he is more than happy to help his daughter. As soon as the call ends, he goes to the park to pick Gina up after school. Back at home, In-woo does not force Gina to start her homework right away. Instead, he lets his granddaughter watch cartoons on a tablet. For Gina, it is a rare little moment of freedom, but the happiness does not last long. When the door opens, Gina quickly hides the tablet and pretends to be doing homework. Soo-jin sees right through it. She loses her temper, scolds Gina, and even blames her father for spoiling the child. In-woo does not dare argue. He only tries to defend Gina carefully, but Gina cannot hold back anymore. She does not understand why her mother has to be so harsh all the time. Feeling hurt and misunderstood, she breaks down at the table. Late that night, Gina is still upset. She worries that once she goes to America, her mother will no longer want her. In-woo comforts her in his own gentle way. He tells her that if she ever gets lost, she can find her way home by looking at the stars. Most people know about using the North Star for direction, but In-woo tells her there is something many people forget. Before finding the North Star, you first have to find the bright constellation Cassiopeia. The next day, In-woo continues watching Gina, but the child is even more miserable because it is Saturday and she still has to go to English tutoring. Soo-jin tries to make it sound like a game, but Gina is not little enough to fall for that. She pulls away from her mother and vents all the frustration she has been holding inside. Soo-jin loses patience again and leaves Gina with In-woo, but there is no real hatred between mother and daughter. That night, after Soo-jin comes home, she and Gina make their favorite whistling sound together, and the tension from the day slowly disappears. Gina teaches her mother how to identify Cassiopeia and how to use it to find direction. The next day, Soo-jin and In-woo wait together for Gina after school. Gina runs over excitedly and says she has prepared a secret gift for her mother in the park. But Soo-jin is only allowed to find it after Gina leaves for America. Soo-jin is touched and quietly promises herself she will remember. That night, the family drives into the mountains and looks at the sky through a telescope. Gina teaches Soo-jin a song about Cassiopeia, and her voice floats under the stars. The warm scene feels almost frozen in time. Later, mother and daughter lie face to face in sleeping bags. Soo-jin tells Gina that she must become strong, because if she is not strong, people may look down on her or ignore her. Gina is too young to understand the bitterness behind those words. To her, it sounds simple. If she becomes like her mother, no one will be able to bully her. The next day is the day of departure. Gina packs her luggage and notices In-woo brushing his teeth. In-woo explains that it is a habit he has kept for years. Even if the mind forgets, the body can still remember. That is how he feels he is still alive. Gina does not fully understand, but she promises to call Soo-jin and In-woo often after she gets to America. Just as the three of them are about to leave, Soo-jin's phone rings. Her boss demands that she send over documents related to a case immediately. There is no room for explanation. Soo-jin has no choice but to ask In-woo to take Gina to the airport while she goes home to prepare the files. After Soo-jin finishes the work, she gets ready to leave. Then she sees Gina's empty room. For a moment, her mind goes blank. She gets into the car and calls In-woo, but instead of asking how things are going at the airport, she asks where he is and tells him to bring Gina back quickly or they will miss the flight. In-woo immediately senses something is wrong. He takes Soo-jin to the hospital for tests, and the results devastate them both. The scans show that Soo-jin's brain has already started to shrink. Blood tests also show markers connected to Alzheimer's disease. The doctor tells her she has early-onset Alzheimer's. Soo-jin cannot believe it. She keeps saying she is only in her 30s. How could she possibly have a disease like that? But the doctor's expression only grows heavier. This form is faster and more aggressive than ordinary cases. In as little as 3 months, or perhaps a year or two, Soo-jin may forget everything. The words hit her like a blow. She sits in the hospital hallway, completely lost. After asking In-woo whether Gina got on the plane safely, Soo-jin finally breaks down. She cannot understand why this is happening. She has suffered more than most people, fought harder than most people, and only just reached the life she built for herself. Why would it end like this? It is the first time In-woo has seen his daughter cry this way, and he has no idea how to comfort her. His own heart feels like it is being crushed. After she gathers herself, Soo-jin begins memory testing. At first, she thinks the questions are so simple they are almost insulting. But when the doctor asks how she will get home later, the answer should be obvious. She will take a car. Yet Soo-jin cannot remember the word. Her heart sinks. Her condition is already worse than she imagined. That night, Gina calls from the United States on video. Soo-jin's ex-husband says Gina is adjusting well and has even made new friends. Soo-jin feels a small moment of relief. To her, Gina's happiness matters more than anything. But Soo-jin's illness is moving faster than anyone expected. The next day, she walks into the office wearing pajamas. Her boss is furious and accuses her of becoming careless and unprofessional. Soo-jin knows she is in the wrong, but she cannot explain the truth. She swallows the humiliation alone. Meanwhile, In-woo sees a man helping his mother out of a car. From their conversation, he learns that the man's mother also has Alzheimer's. When he notices 2 caregivers nearby, In-woo asks whether there are any lectures or meetings for families of Alzheimer's patients. The man warmly tells him about a family support group where people share advice and experience. In-woo takes the flyer home and begins reading books about Alzheimer's. Not long after, he hears someone entering the door code again and again, getting it wrong every time. His heart tightens. When he opens the door, Soo-jin forces a calm smile, pretending nothing happened. But during their conversation, she forgets that Gina has already left for America. In-woo can only watch helplessly as Soo-jin searches the house for her daughter. When Soo-jin returns to herself, In-woo gently suggests changing the front door to a fingerprint lock. He lies and says it is because he often forgets the password. Soo-jin understands what he is doing. He is protecting her pride. She also knows she can no longer rely on a password, so she quietly agrees. After the lock is changed, In-woo goes to the family support group. A caregiver assumes the patient must be his mother or his wife. When In-woo says the patient is his daughter, everyone is stunned. Standing in front of the group, In-woo looks like a man confessing a failure. He says he worked overseas for more than 30 years and missed almost every major moment in Soo-jin's life. Her graduation, her career, her marriage, and the birth of her daughter. Now that he finally has time to be with her, this is what they are facing. He pours out his regret, but no one can give him the solution he wants. At the same time, Soo-jin goes to work as usual and learns that prosecutors are visiting the firm to investigate one of her cases. At first, she answers their questions clearly, but as the questioning continues, her mind suddenly empties. The facts vanish. The harder she tries to remember, the more everything breaks apart. The prosecutors keep pressing, and Soo-jin's carefully maintained composure collapses in front of everyone. She realizes her career is over. Rather than being pushed out in disgrace, she chooses to leave on her own terms. She calmly reminds her boss that if they can prove the representative lacked the capacity to receive notice, the contract they signed can be invalidated. Her boss understands. Soo-jin is sacrificing herself to protect the law firm and the case. It is painful, but it is the best option left. Soo-jin packs her things, leaves the office, and drives home. On the road, she suddenly realizes the scenery looks familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. She cannot remember the way home. She has to pull over and call In-woo. The disease is like a deep pit, swallowing Soo-jin little by little. She begins accepting that she is losing herself. She asks In-woo why he brushes his teeth at the same time every day. In-woo tells her that when a person gives meaning to one small action, life can begin to change. But meaning alone cannot save her from fear. During a video call, Gina mentions going out with a new friend. Soo-jin has already forgotten the friend. In-woo quickly grabs the laptop, trying to hide Soo-jin's condition from Gina, but Soo-jin soon recovers enough to open the screen again and sees her confused daughter looking back at her. The pain hits Soo-jin all at once. She walks to the sink and turns on the water to cover the sound of her crying. She tells In-woo that if she ever reaches the point where she cannot recognize Gina, he should send her to a care facility. Soo-jin would rather disappear than let her daughter see the full truth. But the thought of forgetting Gina terrifies her more than anything. To help Soo-jin, In-woo takes her to the support group. The man who cares for his mother introduces himself as Jun-il. Soo-jin does not really want to talk to anyone, and when a staff member accidentally mistakes In-woo for the patient during a clay activity, her frustration erupts. The group pauses for a break. In-woo follows someone outside and asks about care facilities, only to learn that there are no open beds because there are too many patients. Inside, an elderly patient has an accident and wets himself. The sight deeply shocks Soo-jin. She imagines herself becoming like that, unable to understand or control anything, and she cannot bear it. She says living like that, without a soul, would be no different from becoming a zombie. Soo-jin has always been proud and strong. She cannot accept the idea of ending up helpless. When they get home, she tries to end her own life. But as she feels life slipping away, fear and anger rush back in. Is this really how she is going to die? Is this really all that is left? She breaks down sobbing. In-woo finds her and frantically stops the bleeding. After he bandages her wound, he begs her not to do anything like that again. He tells her that only because Soo-jin is still here can he still be a father. Only because she is here does he still have a complete home. His words reach her. Soo-jin agrees to visit a care facility with him. There, they meet Jun-il again. He explains that to be admitted, Soo-jin must first get on the waiting list. Soo-jin no longer resists. She returns home and waits. Then she remembers what In-woo said about meaning and routine. From that day on, In-woo puts schedules all over the house. He guides Soo-jin through every part of the day at fixed times. He walks her along every route around the neighborhood, hoping her body will remember what her mind cannot. One night, while Soo-jin is briefly clear, she calls Gina. Gina mentions the gift she left in the park and tells her mother to go find it, but Soo-jin freezes. Then she asks Gina what her name is. In-woo immediately closes the laptop, terrified that Gina will discover the truth. The next day, Soo-jin goes to court to prove that she has Alzheimer's, so the previous contract can be cancelled. While the lawyers argue, Soo-jin suddenly begins to cry. Then she groans in pain and has an accident in the courtroom. In-woo notices first, but because he is a man, staff members stop him from entering the room where they take Soo-jin to change her clothes. Inside, Soo-jin is confused and terrified. She struggles like a child and keeps calling for her father. Her voice cuts through In-woo like a blade. On the way home, Soo-jin suddenly crouches near the park. She sees a bright pink star and pulls out a glass jar. It is Gina's secret gift. But Soo-jin no longer remembers the promise. She simply thinks the jar is pretty. Inside are notes from Gina, filled with messages telling her mother not to be sad and reminding her that Gina and In-woo will always love her. Later, Jun-il brings a caregiver to Soo-jin's home and tries to recommend her to In-woo, but the caregiver immediately criticizes the apartment and complains about everything she sees. In-woo cannot trust someone like that to care for his daughter, so he sends her away. After Jun-il leaves, In-woo calls Soo-jin to eat. He finds that she has had another accident. He tries to help her change, but Soo-jin panics again. In the struggle, she hits him. In-woo reacts on instinct and slaps her back. The sound snaps him back to reality. Filled with shame, he goes to the bathroom to calm himself. When he returns, Soo-jin is sitting on the floor with Gina's notes scattered in front of her. Her cheek still shows the mark from his hand. In-woo is crushed by guilt, but Soo-jin does not understand what happened. She only looks at the notes and says the person who wrote them must have had a very close relationship with her mother. The next day, In-woo takes Soo-jin to the hospital. The doctor sees that Soo-jin has nearly lost her cognitive ability and tells In-woo he should prepare for what comes next. As they leave the office, Jun-il calls. His voice is heavy. His mother has passed away, which means Soo-jin can now take her place at the facility. In-woo hurries there. On the way, he worries about Soo-jin being mistreated. Remembering what happened at home, he teaches her what to say say if someone does something she hates or fears. He repeats the words slowly, teaching her how to refuse and how to protect herself. At the facility, Jun-il looks empty. After years of caring for his mother, he has lost almost everything. He tells In-woo to send Soo-jin away quickly before In-woo ends up walking the same road he did. But before In-woo can fully process the warning, Soo-jin tears a piece of tablecloth and puts it in her mouth. In-woo rushes to stop her. Jun-il suddenly breaks down. He screams that his own life is completely ruined and that he can no longer see any hope. He collapses on the floor, covering his face and crying. Seeing Jun-il like that forces In-woo to make a painful decision. The next day, he braids Soo-jin's hair, hangs a name tag around her neck, and personally sends his daughter onto the care facility's vehicle. Just like that, In-woo returns to his life alone. But the apartment feels hollow. Then he suddenly remembers he forgot to pack Soo-jin's clothes. He asks Jun-il to take Soo-jin back to her home and wait for him there while he drives over. When Soo-jin sees the familiar apartment, pieces of memory flash inside her. She begins searching the rooms for Gina. Jun-il tries to stop her and holds her down while calling In-woo to hurry over. But after he hangs up, things take a dangerous turn. Seeing Soo-jin helpless beneath him, Jun-il is overwhelmed by a dark impulse and nearly crosses a horrific line. Then, Soo-jin says the refusal words In-woo taught her. Her voice is small, but to Jun-il, it lands like thunder. He snaps back to himself and realizes how monstrous his thoughts have become. Shame floods him, and he can no longer stay near her. Meanwhile, In-woo is rushing to Soo-jin's home when a truck crashes into him. He is taken to the hospital. The doctors find Soo-jin's number in his phone and call her, but Soo-jin no longer understands what the call means. She simply keeps answering as if she understands. The next morning, the hospital calls again and says In-woo's surgery was successful and he has been moved to recovery. For a brief moment, Soo-jin becomes clear enough to get dressed and leave the apartment. But soon, her mind drifts again. She accidentally gets into a tour group's van and is taken to a nearby mountain. Soo-jin wanders like a puppet, walking from day into night. Then the alarm on her watch rings. That familiar sound wakes up the body memory In-woo tried so hard to build. Like she has done every day, Soo-jin begins walking. Above her, Cassiopeia shines clearly in the night sky, pointing the way. Soo-jin follows instinct, step by step. By the next morning, she somehow makes it out of the mountain and returns to her apartment complex in the rain. She is still unaware of what she is doing, rummaging through garbage without understanding why. Then the tour van appears again. The people from the day before recognize her and call for her to get back on. Just as Soo-jin is about to leave again, a small hand grabs hers. It is Gina. Her father has brought her back from America, but Soo-jin does not recognize them. They take Soo-jin to the hospital and bring her to In-woo's bedside. In-woo has regained consciousness. Weakly, he asks Soo-jin whether she is still following the schedule. Something in Soo-jin responds. Her empty eyes begin to fill with tears, and she mechanically answers his questions. For In-woo, that is enough. It means his efforts were not meaningless. He holds his daughter's hand, holding on to what remains of their home. After they leave the room, Soo-jin looks at Gina and asks, just as she did before, what her name is. Gina's eyes turn red, but she smiles and says her name. Because Gina has grown stronger now. She has become the kind of person her mother wanted her to become, and Soo-jin no longer has to pretend to be strong alone. She can cry in front of her daughter. Gina becomes Soo-jin's Cassiopeia. Like the constellation in the night sky, she will keep guiding her mother, lighting the path ahead, even when Soo-jin can no longer find the way on her own. That's all for today's movie recap. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share. I'll see you in the next one.